little girl was missing for years, yet no one ever reported it to the police. No school records, no medical files, not a single trace anywhere in the system. How could a child almost vanish from the world without anyone noticing? And the truth behind the story of Erica Parsons is even more disturbing than you might imagine. Erica Lynn Parsons was born on February 24, 1998, in Salisbury, North Carolina, into a family struggling through prolonged financial hardship. Her biological mother, Carolyn Parsons, was living separately from Steve at the time and was trying to raise 3 young children on her own. Fearing that her daughter might grow up surrounded by constant instability and temporary shelters, Carolyn made a decision that would likely weigh on her heart for the rest of her life. She placed Erica with relatives for adoption in the hope that her daughter would have a more stable childhood. In 2000, the adoption was finalized, and Erica moved in with Casey Parsons and Sandy Parsons in Rowan County, North Carolina. Sandy was the brother of Steve, Carolyn's former husband. At the time, everyone believed this would be a safe home, a true place of refuge where Erica could grow up alongside the other children in the household, including Jamie Parsons, in what seemed like a busy and supportive family environment. But as time passed, what unfolded behind the doors of that home did not match those early hopes. Erica was a small, quiet girl with mild hearing difficulties and a rather withdrawn personality. She did not attend public school like many other children and was mostly taught at home, a situation that gradually caused her presence to fade from the official education system and unintentionally created a troubling gap in oversight. Carolyn still tried to maintain contact and visited her daughter from time to time. But the last time she saw Erica in person was in January 2011. On July 30th, 2013, in Rowan County, North Carolina, a major turning point finally occurred when Jamie Parsons and his uncle, Scott Parsons, voluntarily approached law enforcement to speak about Erica Parsons. This was not a case of a recent disappearance, but rather the story of a child who had quietly vanished from family life for such a long period that it had become deeply alarming. Scott shared that for years, he had only heard vague explanations that Erica was living somewhere else, yet he had never personally seen the girl again. That long silence was finally broken when Jamie decided he could no longer ignore the situation. During the interview, Jamie said he had repeatedly wondered why Erica was no longer appearing at the home on Miller Chapel Road in Salisbury, North Carolina. The answer he consistently received from Casey and Sandy was the same. Erica had been taken to Asheville to live with her biological grandmother, named Irene Goodman, often called Nan. However, this story raised serious doubts for Jamie, especially since no one in the family had ever been able to confirm the real existence of such a woman. As he continued speaking with investigators, Jamie also recalled that during the years Erica still lived in the home, she was often isolated from normal family life and subjected to harsh treatment both emotionally and physically. One detail that drew particular attention from authorities was that even though Erica had not been present in the household for a very long time, Casey and Sandy had continued receiving a monthly support payment of about $600 intended for her care through the social assistance system. This financial element raised a major question. Why had a child who had not been living in the home for such a long time never been reported? And why had the benefits continued as if everything were still normal? When questioned by authorities, Casey Parsons and Sandy Parsons immediately rejected all the information Jamie had provided, claiming he had fabricated the story because of past conflicts with the family and because he had been asked to leave the house. They continued to insist that in 2011, Erica had been taken to Asheville, North Carolina, to live with her biological grandmother named Irene Goodman, also called Nan, and added that their daughter Brooke had accompanied them on that trip. However, when Brooke was interviewed separately by investigators, she denied ever taking part in any trip like the one her parents described. The inconsistencies in the statements quickly raised serious suspicion, because if the Asheville story were true, the most basic details should have matched. Instead, each statement seemed to introduce another layer of contradiction. From that moment on, the investigation was no longer simply about a child who was living somewhere else, but began shifting toward a far more critical question. What actually happened after 2011? And where had Erica Parsons been during all those years when no official record confirmed that she was still alive? In later interviews, Casey claimed she had communicated with a woman referred to as Nan Goodman through Facebook, and believed this was Erica's biological grandmother who was caring for the girl in Asheville, North Carolina. However, when investigators asked her to provide specific contact information or access the account that had been used, Casey was unable to produce any verifiable evidence and even stated that the Facebook page could no longer be accessed. A review of family records quickly revealed a critical detail. Erica's biological grandmother had passed away in 2005, many years before the time Erica was supposedly taken away from the home, and also before the last confirmed sighting of the girl. This led authorities to conclude that the figure known as Nan had no factual basis for existing. Carolyn Parsons, Erica's biological mother, also confirmed that their family had no relatives living in Asheville. Meanwhile, attorneys representing Casey and Sandy suggested that Carolyn herself had once mentioned this woman, but Carolyn firmly responded, "Nan or Irene never existed. The two people who know the truth are the two who refuse to tell it." Later on, Casey changed her explanation again, claiming that she had been misled online by a woman pretending to be a relative of Erica. Immediately after the report concerning Erica was filed on July 30th, 2013, in Rowan County, authorities intervened and removed the two youngest children in the Parsons household from the home to ensure their safety. By August 6th, 2013, the Rowan County Sheriff's Office publicly announced that Casey Parsons and Sandy Parsons were not fully cooperating with the investigation, creating significant obstacles in verifying key information. A few days later, Carolyn Parsons returned from New Orleans to meet directly with investigators. She confirmed that the last time she saw Erica was on January 5th, 2011, and said that afterward she had only received scattered updates through social media. From that point on, January 2011 became the last independently confirmed moment Erica had been seen, raising the troubling possibility that the girl had not been seen for more than 2 years before her case was officially reported. Despite the conflicting information surrounding the situation, Carolyn still expressed hope that her daughter might be alive and waiting to be found. About 2 weeks after Erica was officially reported missing in Rowan County, the neighborhood where the Parsons family lived was suddenly sealed off to support search operations. Numerous law enforcement vehicles appeared within a short period of time, turning the normally quiet street into a tightly controlled investigation zone. The backyard of the house on Miller Chapel Road was searched multiple times, but at first, no clear evidence was found. By late August 2013, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, officially joined the case, expanding the scope of the investigation and carrying out more detailed search warrants. Public records show that multiple items inside the home were seized for analysis, including documents, books, and several areas of the house that appeared to have been repaired or structurally altered. Part of a wall and sections of the baseboard were removed for examination after investigators noticed unusual markings, while some clothing and personal belongings were also taken for forensic testing. A week later, authorities conducted another search at a storage building owned by Sandy Parsons and collected additional items for technical analysis. Most notably, according to the search records, investigators observed no signs indicating that Erica had been living in the home for a significant period of time beforehand, and they did not find any personal space that appeared to be maintained for her. These findings were not enough to reach an immediate legal conclusion, but they significantly deepened concerns that Erica's absence was not simply the result of a relocation as initially claimed. Parallel to the searches of the property, another investigative direction focused on the financial assistance issued in Erica's name. Authorities in Rowan County obtained warrants to access the bank records and financial documents of Casey and Sandy after determining there was reason to believe that benefits intended for Erica had continued to be collected regularly during the period when the girl was no longer present in the household. In the warrant request, investigators stated that a possible financial motive could help explain why reporting Erica's situation had been delayed for such a long time. Records showed that the Parsons family held accounts with Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and SunTrust Bank, and because Erica had been adopted through the public care system and had special needs, they qualified to receive a monthly assistance payment of more than $634 from the North Carolina Department of Social Services. Defense attorneys argued that continuing to receive the payments did not violate regulations because Casey and Sandy were still Erica's legal guardians on paper. However, what investigators questioned was not only the flow of money, but the prolonged silence. If Erica truly was no longer living at home, why had no official notification ever been made? The only response from them was that Erica was not missing, but that, in their belief, she was living with her grandmother, an explanation that had already been placed under serious doubt earlier in the investigation. During their appearances before the media, Casey and Sandy were closely observed for every expression and every word they chose. What particularly caught investigators' attention was that both of them often referred to Erica in the past tense, as if she belonged to a chapter that had already ended, even though there had been no official confirmation about her situation. In complete contrast, Carolyn Parsons, Erica's biological mother, consistently spoke about her daughter in the present tense, holding firmly to the belief that Erica was still somewhere out there and needed to be found. In an interview with the press on August 5th, she said with deep emotion, "She's my biological daughter. I want people to know that I still love her." Meanwhile, Sandy continued repeating the claim that Erica was simply living somewhere else, and even suggested that someone had once seen the girl at a rest stop, information that had supposedly been passed along through relatives. When reporters asked why those individuals had not contacted authorities directly, Sandy replied, "We told them not to wait or call us, but to call the police. What I want most right now is for Erica to call home, say she's safe, and give me back my 2 little ones." The 2 children he referred to were the same ones authorities had removed from the Parsons home shortly after the report about Erica was filed, a detail that only raised more questions among the public about the consistency of the story the family was presenting. While the investigation into Erica continued, Casey and Sandy were also pursuing legal steps to regain custody of the 2 younger children who had been removed from the home. They were required to work with the Department of Social Services, or DSS, to evaluate their parenting conditions, and a judge was expected to determine whether the family environment was safe enough for the children to return. However, a review of records revealed that the family had previously been reported to DSS multiple times in the past. Notably, in March 2002, the agency had conducted an investigation regarding how Erica was being cared for. But at that time, no sufficient evidence was found to reach an adverse conclusion, and it was noted that the girl did not display clear signs of fear. As investigators continued speaking with other members of the family to gather information, Casey denied all of the statements that had been provided, claiming that relatives were spreading false information and even accusing her own mother of influencing the children to make unfavorable claims. Defense attorneys also argued that the statements coming from family members lacked legal foundation, while emphasizing that Casey and Sandy were cooperating in the search for Erica and had become targets of what they described as personal accusations. Casey was the one directly responsible for homeschooling the children. According to records from North Carolina's Non-Public Education Oversight Agency, attendance logs and standardized test results for the other children in the household were submitted fairly consistently. However, when officials reviewed Erica's case separately, the agency could not clearly confirm whether her academic records had ever been properly submitted and archived according to required procedures. This detail further raised concerns that Erica's presence within the official system had faded much earlier than expected. When asked again about the story of the grandmother in Asheville, Casey continued to insist that she had communicated with the woman through Facebook, but said the account had been deleted and the phone number was no longer active. Around the same time, Casey and Sandy appeared on the Dr. Phil program to present their side of the story. Casey stated that they had never personally gone to the home where Erica was supposedly living, but claimed they had seen photographs of the residence. In another interview, she said that Erica had only come for a visit and later chose not to return home. At one point, Casey even discovered a social media account using Erica's name and informed the Rowan County Department of Social Services that it belonged to her daughter, who she claimed was then living in Greensboro. The constantly shifting versions of the story, lacking consistency and independent verification, made the case increasingly complicated, as each new explanation seemed to contradict the statements that had come before it. Parallel to interviewing witnesses and reviewing the property, investigators expanded their search nationwide to determine whether Erica had appeared in any official system after 2011. They checked multiple databases, but none showed any activity under the name Erica Parsons during the period when she was said to be living somewhere else. Her complete absence from these official records raised serious concerns. Meanwhile, Casey introduced another detail, claiming that in 2011, Erica had met her biological mother at a Whataburger restaurant, and that after that encounter, the girl no longer wished to maintain contact. However, this account was never supported by any confirming evidence. The prolonged uncertainty increasingly unsettled the community in Salisbury. On August 23, 2013, residents in the area gathered in front of the house on Miller Chapel Road to hold a prayer vigil, hoping for any news that might help clarify Erica's situation. In the days that followed, Erica's photos and search information appeared everywhere, from community bulletin boards to major traffic points, reflecting the community's determination to keep her story from fading into silence. On August 26, 2013, Casey and Sandy were summoned again by the FBI for additional questioning. Just one day after the interview, the two packed their belongings, loaded them into a moving truck, and left the area, a move that raised even more questions as the media continued closely following the case. When investigators spoke with Sandy's stepfather to verify information, he said Sandy occasionally visited and sometimes brought Erica along during earlier years. However, when asked to recall the last time he had seen the girl, he estimated it was sometime around 2008 or 2009. If that timeline was accurate, it meant that many family members had not had direct contact with Erica long before the missing report was filed in 2013. These scattered and inconsistent details gradually formed a deeply conflicting picture, a child who had nearly vanished from every official social circle. For investigators, the only certainty at that point was that such a prolonged absence could not simply be a coincidence. Somewhere within the overlapping statements, there remained a truth that had not yet been spoken. Carolyn continued appearing at prayer gatherings and community meetings, urging people to keep attention focused on Erica. She believed that the more people who knew her daughter's story, the greater the chance of uncovering the truth. On January 16, 2014, a court ruled that the two younger children, who had previously been removed from the Parsons home, would not return to live with Casey and Sandy, but would instead be placed in the care of an aunt. However, that arrangement did not last long, as authorities later had to revise the placement after concerns emerged regarding the children's behavior. By early 2014, there was still no verified evidence showing where Erica was or what her situation might be. On January 30, 2014, the FBI announced a reward of $25,000 for any credible information that could lead to clues about Erica, in addition to a reward offered by the Rowan County Sheriff's Office. The organization Prevent Child Abuse. Rowan also added $10,000, and by mid-year the total reward had increased to $50,000. On July 30, 2014, exactly 1 year after the report about Erica was filed, the case entered an entirely new phase. Federal agents carried out arrest warrants for Casey and Sandy, bringing an end to months of quiet financial investigation. In Fayetteville, the two were charged with a total of 76 counts related to actions that allegedly occurred between February 2010 and August 2013, primarily involving financial fraud and the misuse of personal information. According to prosecutors' records, they were accused of continuing to collect adoption assistance, Medicaid, Social Security, and nutritional support benefits intended for a dependent child during the period when Erica was no longer living in the household. Casey was also accused of using another person's information as a dependent in order to adjust tax filings. While awaiting trial, both were released under strict conditions. They were required to wear electronic monitoring devices, report regularly to pretrial officers, and remain within the eastern region of North Carolina. Although the charges at this stage focused on financial misconduct, the central question of the case, what truly happened to Erica, still had no answer. During the trial concerning the financial fraud charges in North Carolina, the proceedings gradually expanded into another dimension as the judge heard testimony from several family members, including Jamie Parsons, Casey Parsons, and Casey's sister, Robin. Although the legal focus at the time was on money-related conduct, the testimony revealed a troubling picture of Erica's living environment during the years leading up to her disappearance. Robin stated that there had been a period when Casey asked her to help watch Erica because she felt she could not control her. And during those interactions, Robin noticed that Erica often showed signs of injury and was kept separate from normal family activities. Jamie also testified that his adopted sister had frequently been restricted from basic needs, subjected to prolonged punishments, and isolated from other members of the household. Some testimony indicated that Erica did not have a consistent personal sleeping space and had been subjected to harsh disciplinary practices. Brooke and other family members also said there were times when Erica was not taken for medical examinations, despite showing signs of injury, and instead, the family handled the situation at home. Witnesses described the atmosphere inside the house as one where Erica was often treated as an outsider and subjected to different treatment compared with the other children. Prosecutors also referenced an earlier statement from Sandy in which he suggested that no one would ever find Erica because Casey was too clever. When considered together, these accounts did not directly determine what happened during Erica's final known period, but they formed a chain of information indicating that Erica's life before her disappearance had contained many troubling and unusual signs. According to those who lived in the home, the final week before Erica was no longer seen was the most concerning period. They described the girl as thin, exhausted, nearly drained of energy, and showing multiple signs of untreated injury. Jamie recalled that the last time he saw Erica, she appeared weak and barely able to stand. The girl complained of feeling tired and having difficulty breathing, but according to testimony, Casey's response was simply to order her to continue standing in the corner, a form of punishment commonly used in the household. The next morning, Jamie woke up and noticed the house was empty. Casey and Sandy did not return until later that day. When he asked where Erica was, they repeated the same explanation, that she had been taken to live with her grandmother. In later arguments before the court, Prosecutor Anand Rao Swamy suggested that, based on the sequence of testimony, that moment could represent a significant point connected to Erica's disappearance and raised the possibility of a shared silence between the couple. Sandy's defense attorney challenged that interpretation, emphasizing that being a bad parent is not the same as committing a crime, and argued that much of the allegation relied on Jamie's account alone. Jamie explained that as early as February 2013, he had shared his concerns with Shirley, his maternal grandmother, about how long it had been since anyone had seen Erica, but it took him several more months to gather the courage to make an official report. Meanwhile, Scott, Sandy's brother, claimed that Jamie was not reliable. Shirley, Casey's mother, said the last time she saw Erica was during the holiday season in 2011. She remembered noticing signs of injury on the girl and receiving an explanation when she asked about it. Shirley acknowledged that she and her husband, James, had suspected that Erica was not being treated well, but did not intervene forcefully because the atmosphere within the family was already tense at the time. Robin, Casey's sister, also said she had once noticed that Erica's hand appeared abnormal. Casey denied all accusations and insisted that those signs were simply natural health issues. At the trial, Robin testified that for many years, Erica had frequently been subjected to harsh disciplinary practices, including being forced to stand facing a wall for long periods as punishment. Photographs presented in court showed Erica placed in that position on multiple occasions. As the testimony continued, other witnesses also shared their memories of how the girl was treated within the household. At one point when she was younger, Erica had called Casey and Sandy Mom and Dad, but was later told to stop using those terms and instead address them by their first names, something some observers believed reflected emotional distance in the relationship. Janet, Sandy's stepmother, described a beach vacation during which Erica was separated from the group and told to remain quiet about her presence. William, Sandy's father, was said to have once found Erica alone in the house while the others had gone out. Janet stated that she had always felt Erica was not treated the same as the other children in the family. Although the trial at that time focused on financial fraud, the overlapping testimony gradually outlined a living environment that many described as lacking care and involving disciplinary practices that raised concern. According to court records, several additional witnesses were still scheduled to testify in order to further clarify this picture. In 2010, while the truth about Erica had not yet come to light, another incident involving Casey Parsons surfaced and further deepened public concern. Amy Miller and her husband had been searching for a surrogate through a website designed to connect families, and after a series of conversations, they chose Casey. The two sides agreed on a payment of about $10,000 to be made in several installments. Casey said she planned to use the money as a contribution to her church, but she also requested additional help with certain household items. After receiving the first payments, Casey suddenly informed Amy that the pregnancy had ended unexpectedly, then quickly changed her contact information and cut off communication. She even told Amy that she had no right to that child and should move on with her life. However, according to records later confirmed, the baby had in fact been born safely. The situation became even more troubling when information emerged suggesting that the Parsons family had proposed giving the child to Robin, Casey's sister, for a similar amount of money, claiming that the Millers no longer wanted to raise the baby. Robin became suspicious and took the initiative to contact Amy, which ultimately helped authorities step in and ensure the child was returned to the correct family. Looking back on the experience, Amy later said that what she went through could only be described as hell, adding that the person she once trusted had completely changed after everything that happened. After the financial charges were brought before the court, the legal proceedings quickly led to the first verdicts. On March 27, 2015, Casey agreed to plead guilty to multiple charges, including 5 counts of mail fraud, 1 count of aggravated misuse of personal information, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the government, 4 counts of wire fraud, and 4 charges related to assisting in the filing of dishonest tax returns. United States District Judge Thomas Schroeder sentenced Casey to 10 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release after her sentence, along with an order to pay restitution of $41,817 and an additional assessment of $1,500. Sandy later faced a separate trial, where the jury found him guilty on 43 counts, including 20 counts of theft of government funds, 20 counts of mail fraud, 1 count of aggravated identity misuse, 1 count of making false statements to federal agents, and 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the government. After less than 5 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous verdict, and Sandy was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, and ordered to pay restitution of $11,624. Although this trial primarily focused on financial misconduct, information concerning how Erica had been treated within the household was still referenced during the proceedings, keeping public attention fixed on the case. According to federal records, in July 2015, Casey was transferred to the Federal Medical Center Carswell in Texas, before later being moved to the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida. Sandy was sent to the Federal Correctional Complex Butner in North Carolina. Both filed appeals of their convictions. However, Sandy Parsons' appeal was ultimately rejected by the Supreme Court of the United States in June 2016. After the sentences were announced, Shirley, Casey Parsons' mother, expressed disagreement with how the court considered testimony related to Erica when reaching its decision. She argued that those details should not have been mentioned when there was still no clear evidence beyond Jamie's account. Not long afterward, Jamie also unexpectedly shifted his position, stating that although he had always been worried about Erica, he had not personally witnessed the actions he had previously described to investigators. This change only made a case that was already complicated even more difficult to understand. Although the investigation stretched on and at times reached frustrating dead ends, the effort to find Erica in the Rowan County community never stopped. Two local residents, Shannon Moss and W. Rogers, took the initiative to seek additional help and contacted Canine Specialties, a search organization that uses trained dogs, led by expert Robert T. Larson in Illinois. Their hope was simple. If any trace had been overlooked, this professional search team might be able to uncover it. W. Rogers said that what worried him most was not the difficulty of the search itself, but the possibility that people might slowly forget about Erica. He emphasized that the Rowan County community would continue standing together until clear answers were found. Even though he had never known Erica personally, after months of participating in the search, he felt that her story had become deeply personal to him. To Rogers, this was not only a responsibility for the community, but also a personal promise that Erica deserved to be found and to have her identity restored. When Robert T. Larson and his canine team arrived to assist, he expressed respect for the persistence of the local volunteers who had devoted so much time and dedication to the search. However, despite multiple search efforts across the area, the teams were still unable to uncover any evidence that could determine where Erica was. W. Rogers emphasized that every search was carried out with two hopes in mind. One was the possibility of finding Erica if a tragedy had already occurred, and the more important hope was that there might still be a chance to locate her if she was somewhere out there. He said, "We're not giving up. We check everything we possibly can." Around the same time, the Rowan County Sheriff's Office worked with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NCMEC, to create an age-progressed image of Erica, a portrait showing how she might look if she were still alive today. These images were quickly shared across news outlets and missing children networks, with the hope that they might trigger someone's memory of having seen Erica and lead to a new clue in the investigation. Nearly 5 years after Erica's missing report had been filed, the case unexpectedly reached a new turning point around May 2016. Brooke Parsons, the eldest daughter of Casey and Sandy, who had previously tended to stand by her parents, finally agreed to speak with the FBI. During her conversation with investigators, Brooke recalled several troubling memories about how Erica had been treated within the household. She remembered one occasion when Casey forced Erica to stand outside in the heat for an extended period without shoes, leaving the girl's feet injured. Brooke said that at the time, Erica appeared extremely weak and showed several signs that her health was unstable. Sometime later, during a visit to see Sandy at the detention facility, Brooke shared these memories with her father. That conversation was believed to have become a significant turning point in the long-running investigation, because afterward, Sandy began saying he was willing to cooperate with authorities and provide information that could help clarify what had happened to Erica. On September 27, 2016, Rowan County Sheriff Kevin Orton informed the public about a significant development in the long-running investigation. After a direct interview with Sandy Parsons, investigators for the first time received specific information related to what had happened to Erica. According to Sandy's statement, Casey had told him that on December 17, 2011, Erica experienced a tragic incident inside their home. After that event, the two allegedly attempted to conceal the evidence by using cleaning chemicals and placing Erica's body in a plastic bag along with a container. Sandy stated that later that same evening, they still attended a holiday gathering as if nothing had happened. The following day, December 18th, Sandy said they drove to a wooded area near Pageland, South Carolina. There, according to his account, they buried Erica in a shallow grave in a remote area of land. Sandy also said that items connected to the incident were later discarded to avoid detection. He acknowledged that Casey was the one who continued maintaining the story about Nan, a fictional figure used for years as an explanation for Erica's absence. In September 2016, after multiple discussions with investigators, Sandy Parsons agreed to assist in identifying the location where Erica had been buried. Investigators worked with Rowan County Chief District Court Judge Brandy Cook to obtain permission to temporarily remove Sandy from the detention facility so he could guide them to the area believed to be the burial site. The location was in a wooded area of Chesterfield County, South Carolina. There, beneath layers of soil and dense tree cover, search teams finally discovered Erica's remains after years of relentless effort. Rowan County Sheriff Kevin Orton later recalled that it was one of the heaviest days of the entire investigation. He said, "I've seen very tough officers who still had to bow their heads and endure that moment." According to him, when Sandy was brought into the woods to point out the location, only minutes later, the escort team came back out, and Sandy broke down in tears, unable to keep his composure. Chesterfield County Sheriff Jay Brooks said Erica's family members were also brought to the area, and many of them became overwhelmed with emotion upon learning where the girl had rested for so many years. Erica's aunt, Teresa Goodman, said that earlier she and a private investigator had searched that same area but found nothing, suggesting the location had been concealed very carefully. Sheriff Brooks also expressed deep respect for the persistence of the Rowan County investigators, who had spent thousands of hours pursuing the case. Before leaving the site that day, he shared a remark that left many people silent. "As soon as you leave here, call your children." A simple but powerful reminder, closing a years-long search for a child who should have had a very different life. By December 2016, Detective Chad Moose unexpectedly received contact from Casey Parsons, who said she wanted to tell the truth. During the interview, Casey offered a new version of what had happened on Erica's final day. She claimed that Erica had said she did not want to keep living, and sometime later, Casey found the girl lying motionless on a blanket in the living room. Casey stated that she tried to shake her and call out to her, but received no response, and she believed it was a self-inflicted tragedy. However, the details in Casey's account changed repeatedly from one interview to another. Casey said that afterward they placed Erica's body into a container and used cleaning chemicals at Sandy's request to conceal the odor. Records of Casey's bank card transactions later showed a purchase of cleaning products at a Walmart store on December 5th. During questioning, Casey admitted that she had used strict forms of discipline with Erica. At first, she denied causing serious injury, but later acknowledged that some injuries may have occurred. Casey also stated that she had used a belt to punish Erica and had not taken Erica for medical examination because she feared it might draw attention from the Department of Social Services after relatives had begun noticing signs of injury. On February 25, 2017, at First Baptist Church in Salisbury, North Carolina, Erica's family, local residents, and many officers who had taken part in the investigation quietly gathered to say goodbye to the young girl. Just one day earlier would have been Erica's birthday, a moment that should have been filled with love, but instead became a deeply emotional memorial. Nearly a year after Erica's remains were discovered, the final forensic report was completed. Rowan County Sheriff Kevin Orton said he had waited for this conclusion so investigators would have a full foundation before moving forward with the next legal steps. When the results were released, they revealed that Erica had endured multiple injuries over a period of time before her disappearance. The North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office determined that the cause of her death was violent action inflicted by another person through an undetermined method. The examination report documented numerous signs of injury on Erica's body at different stages of healing, including trauma across several areas. In addition, the condition of her bones indicated signs consistent with prolonged malnutrition. The official report was delivered to the Rowan County Sheriff's Office on January 9, 2018, clearing the way for authorities to determine and pursue criminal charges related to the case. Although Carolyn Parsons said she felt grateful that Erica was finally found after Sandy revealed the burial location, that did not lead her to consider him innocent. According to Carolyn, Sandy was still someone who had remained silent for years and had supported the false stories Casey used to conceal the truth. On February 20, 2018, Casey Parsons and Sandy Parsons were brought back to Salisbury, North Carolina, to formally face criminal charges related to Erica's tragedy. Rowan County Sheriff Kevin Orton said the anger within the community at that time was intense, with some people even saying the couple should pay the price right in the town square. But he emphasized that all final decisions had to belong to the justice system and a jury. According to the indictment, both were charged with several serious offenses, including first-degree actions leading to a tragic outcome, wrongful conduct toward a child resulting in severe injury, concealment of a death, and obstruction of an investigation. The charging documents also stated that they had intentionally and willingly handled the body of Erica Lynn Parsons in multiple ways in order to remove evidence and conceal what had happened. Rowan County Sheriff Kevin Orton once shared that Erica's case was one of the heaviest burdens of his entire career. After more than 3 decades in law enforcement, he said he had never experienced pressure that lasted so long or weighed so heavily. For him and many other investigators, this was not just another case file, but a responsibility to uncover the truth for a child who could no longer speak for herself. At different points, they hoped Erica might still be alive somewhere, then hoped at least to find some trace of her, and ultimately became determined to pursue the prosecution to the very end. Orton emphasized that every small detail in the case had to be carefully examined because the investigation had been a long and demanding journey. When the formal charges were announced around the time Erica would have turned 20, he said it felt like the moment when her voice was finally being heard. According to the court schedule, Casey was returned to Rowan County to appear in court on March 14, 2018, and Sandy appeared before the court on March 15. By April 2018, prosecutors announced they were considering seeking the maximum possible sentence for both defendants. In February 2019, defense attorneys agreed that the two would be tried separately. As for Carolyn, she shared that at first she wanted the harshest punishment to be imposed. But after much reflection, she came to believe that spending the rest of their lives in prison would be the most fitting consequence. For Carolyn, what Erica had endured was a pain that a mother could hardly accept, and she said openly that in her eyes, the people responsible for that tragedy were unimaginably cruel. On August 2, 2019, Casey Parsons formally pleaded guilty in court to charges related to severe misconduct toward a child and responsibility in Erica's tragedy. The court imposed a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole, a ruling that closed any chance for Casey to return to a free life and marked a significant milestone in the long effort to bring justice for Erica. During the hearing, prosecutors presented testimony from several siblings in the family who described that Erica had lived under extremely harsh conditions and was frequently treated with strict discipline. They said the girl was often isolated from normal family activities, did not receive proper care, and showed signs of injury on her body at different times. One brother stated that Erica often appeared unhealthy and lacked basic care. Before the judge delivered the sentence, Casey stood and spoke, saying she wanted to apologize to God and to Erica. She admitted that in the past, some relatives had tried to intervene and urged her to change the way she treated Erica, but she had refused to listen and instead continued hiding the problems within the family. In addition to the life sentence, Casey was also ordered to serve additional consecutive sentences related to concealing Erica's death, severe misconduct toward a child resulting in serious injury, and obstruction of the investigation, adding a total of 23 more years in prison. Sandy Parsons' trial was initially scheduled for April 6, 2020, and his defense attorneys had filed a motion requesting a change of venue. However, before the trial could begin, on December 17, 2019, Sandy Parsons agreed to plead guilty to charges including second-degree actions leading to death, severe misconduct toward a child, concealment of a death, and obstruction of an investigation. After reviewing the case file and the plea agreement, the court imposed a minimum sentence of 33 years in prison. Under this sentence, Sandy will not be eligible for parole consideration until he is in his 80s, meaning that most of the remainder of his life will likely be spent within the prison system. During the sentencing proceedings for Sandy Parsons, defense attorneys presented letters to the court, written by his two youngest children, in which they expressed that they loved and missed their father and said that Sandy had never treated them poorly. In addition, psychologist Dr. Claudia Coleman, who had conducted 2 psychological evaluations of Sandy, was called to testify. According to her assessment, Sandy was a relatively passive individual who often struggled to make independent decisions, and for many years had tended to be influenced by Casey within their relationship. She stated that Casey had previously threatened to take the children and leave if Sandy did not follow her wishes. Based on the evaluations, Dr. Coleman said Sandy appeared remorseful and believed that he had not intended to cause harm to Erica. Prosecutors, however, argued from a different perspective. They emphasized that Sandy was an adult living in that home and therefore could not claim he was unaware of what was happening. The prosecution argued that Sandy not only knew, but in some instances participated in or tolerated the wrongful actions that took place in the household. For that reason, they maintained that he should be held fully accountable under the law. Carolyn Parsons said the sentence given to Sandy felt like a shock to her because she believed he had many opportunities to make the right choice and protect Erica, but failed to do so. She also said that some family members who had noticed troubling signs should have spoken up sooner. In delivering the final remarks, the judge stated that although Casey had been a dominant influence within the household, Sandy remained part of the same circle of responsibility because he knew, he witnessed, and he allowed the situation to continue. During his time in custody, prison records show that Sandy committed 2 disciplinary violations, one involving possession of a prohibited item and another involving a dangerous object, prompting correctional authorities to continue closely monitoring his behavior. In the end, after coordination among multiple law enforcement agencies, After thousands of hours spent reviewing locations, analyzing leads, and interviewing hundreds of witnesses, the long journey to uncover the truth about Erica Parsons finally reached its conclusion. Rowan County Sheriff Kevin Orton once said something that has stayed with me. Everything we did was not for the Rowan County Sheriff's Office, not for the District Attorney's Office, not for the FBI or the SBI. Every effort was for one person, for Erica. For the investigators involved, they understood that this path had to be taken carefully, step by step, like building a solid foundation so that no detail could be questioned in court. District Attorney Cook also shared that the easiest way to calm public pressure would have been to rush and accuse someone, but doing so would have been irresponsible. He emphasized, "We must have the courage to be the voice for those who cannot speak for themselves." And then he added a statement that left many people silent. Those who are cruel to children represent one of the worst realities in our society. There is nothing more disturbing than exploiting a child's love and trust and making them feel unwanted, unloved, and completely unsafe. Looking back at the entire story, I always feel a heavy weight in my heart. The case of Erica Parsons is not only a family tragedy, but also a powerful warning about how a child can slowly disappear from society's attention when troubling signs are not heard in time. For many years, Erica was almost completely removed from school, had very little contact with the community, and the concerning signals surrounding her life were not recognized early enough. That is also the biggest lesson I believe we should remember when following stories in true crime documentary. Sometimes the smallest details are the ones that can change a person's fate. The right question at the right moment, a report made in time, or a simple act of concern can make an enormous difference. Erica's story reminds us that every child deserves to be protected, to be heard, and to grow up in safety. And when society overlooks warning signs, the consequences can be deeply heartbreaking. If you are watching this video, I hope we do not see it only as another story in a true crime documentary, but also as a reminder to pay closer attention to the people around us. If you would like to remember Erica, please leave a comment below the video. Even a short message is enough to show that her story will not be forgotten. If you found this video meaningful, please share it so more people can learn about this story and reflect on the lessons behind cases like this. And if you enjoy in-depth analysis of real cases in the True Crime Documentary series, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you will not miss the next stories. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. I truly appreciate your presence here. I will see you again in the next video.